The 2023 NFL Draft was stacked with NFL wide receiver talent, but none may be as impactful as Jordan Addison. The Minnesota Vikings decided to draft him in the first round this year, and with Justin Jefferson already on the team, there'll be a lot of opportunity for Addison to take off right away. While there has been some controversy surrounding his name to start out the year, I think Addison will be a star for the Vikings, is someone I'm super excited to watch, and has a great journey to get here. In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to who Jordan Addison is. We're going to talk about his insane rise, his college career at both Pitt and USC, and what my expectations are for him on the Vikings. But before we get started, quickly be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new and love college football content, and let me know what player, team topic, or situation I could do next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Jordan Addison. Going back in time, Addison said when he was 3 years old, he asked his mom if he could play football. She said next year. When he turned 4, Addison asked once again, and she said next year. She told him one last time and said that he had to be 5 years old before he could play. Football in him was love at first sight, and growing up outside of Baltimore, speed was always the thing that mattered the most to Addison. He said, quote, "We used to race in the park all the time. From elementary school all the way up, that's all it's been, racing." But speed was far from Addison's only asset. Through Pop Warner football, he played quarterback and quickly emerged as one of the better players in the area and was the next great athlete there. He liked the quarterback spot, but eventually followed in the footsteps of former DC area receiver Stefon Diggs. He knew he was destined for football stardom and also knew he'd be playing in the NFL one day. When he was a young kid during a Super Bowl party, he told his mother, quote, "I'm going to the NFL. It's going to be me one day." Without a hint of sarcasm, her mom said, "Yes, you are." He said his dream was always to go to the NFL, and he wrote down that he wanted to be drafted in the first round. That would end up happening over a decade later, but first he'd had to have his rise. For that, he had to put in a ton of hard work to make it, and when he arrived at Tuscarora High School, he had a chip on his shoulder. He'd also have to make plenty of sacrifices if he wanted to be at the top. After his sophomore year there, he gave up playing basketball, which was another sport he could have definitely excelled at if he put time and effort into it. The reason he didn't is because he wanted to run indoor track to improve his speed, so that would make him a better football player. It definitely stirred up a lot of people, but his mom said, quote, he just wanted to make it to the NFL. That's always been his goal, and he always knew what he had to do. He just stuck to it and said, this is what I'm going to do, and I don't care what anybody else has to say. I'm going to make it. Addison would become a star on the football field and was dangerous to opposing coaches. Oakdale's high school football coach said, quote, even if he catches a pass on a basic curl route, you're worried it might be a touchdown. He ended up starting 4 years, but specifically as a senior, Addison caught 25 passes for 544 yards and 8 touchdowns. His team had a disappointing 3-6 record though. He would eventually start to receive football offers, as after his 9th grade season, a member of the Maryland coaching staff noticed him and was the first to offer him. He would later join the Pitt staff. Eventually, UMass, East Carolina, and Temple were the next schools to offer him, but those weren't the kind of offers he was really looking for if he wanted to make it to the NFL. He also didn't know what position he was going to be recruited at or what he wanted to play. While in high school, he was a very accomplished cornerback, as in fact, Notre Dame offered him a scholarship to be a defensive back. While he didn't end up playing the cornerback position, it would help him. He said, quote, playing corner in my past, you know what the receiver wants to do, and you know their disadvantages, and that sure helps out a lot. He did consider playing corner in high school, but one conversation with his older brother changed everything. His brother wanted him to be like Stefon Diggs and Calvin Ridley, and Jordan said, quote, he told me, you need the ball in your hand, so I stuck with it, and I feel it's been paying off. Well, where would Addison end up going? He ended up getting 20 committable offers, including Maryland, Notre Dame, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, Pitt, and Syracuse. He eventually chose Pitt, in part because of a close relationship with that same staff member who offered him as a freshman. He also loved the culture, and it wasn't too far from home. This was a huge get for Pitt, and one local area scout said, quote, he's one of the more special players to come through this county in the last 10 years. This was huge, and according to 24/7 Sports, Addison was a 4-star recruit, the number 4 athlete, and the 131st best player in the class of 2020. So, how would he end up doing at Pitt? When Addison arrived at Pittsburgh, he got a ton of attention from the get-go. He was named to the 24/7 Sports True Freshman preseason team, and Pat Narduzzi compared him to Antonio Brown. Early on at Pitt, he formed a bond with their quarterback Kenny Pickett, and this would do wonders for him. His freshman year was an immediate success for him. He caught 7 passes in their first game against Austin Peay, and then had 2 combined touchdowns and wins over Syracuse and Louisville. He He had 7 catches in their loss to Boston College before a season-high 147 yards against Miami. He didn't do much in their loss to Notre Dame, and then had 11 catches for 127 yards against Florida State. Besides that, he caught a touchdown against Clemson and then helped them beat Georgia Tech. For his freshman year, he caught 60 passes for 666 yards and 4 touchdowns. Luckily, 2021 would be his breakout season, as alongside Kenny Pickett, Pitt would have an insane season, and Addison would become the top receiver in college football. He started out a little bit slow, as he had 2 combined touchdowns in wins over Tennessee and UMass before he would explode. He had 124 yards and 3 touchdowns in a loss to Western Michigan, 179 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win over New Hampshire, and then 117 yards and a touchdown in a win over Georgia Tech. At this time, Pitt was starting to figure it out, and after a win over Virginia Tech, Addison would catch a touchdown in their giant win against Clemson. Unfortunately, his 145 yards weren't enough to beat Miami, and Pitt was now out of playoff contention, but they had finished the year on a high note. He caught 7 passes for 171 yards and a touchdown in a win over Duke, helped them beat UNC in overtime, and then had the best game of his career. Against Virginia, he caught 14 passes for 202 yards and 4 touchdowns. This was one of the best single games in Pitt history, and he finished out the regular season with 2 more scores against Syracuse. He'd helped them get to the ACC championship game, where against Wake Forest, he caught 8 passes for 126 yards. The Panthers would qualify to play in where while they would lose to Michigan State, Addison caught 7 passes for 114 yards. In total, he finished the season with 100 receptions for 1,593 yards and 17 scores. He was the best receiver in college football, and because of that, he won the Biletnikoff Award. He beat out Jamison Williams of Alabama and David Bell of Purdue to win the award. He became a consensus All-American and was the first receiver to do so since Larry Fitzgerald back in 2003. In his 2-year career at Pitt, he had 160 catches for 2,259 yards and 21 touchdowns. He also ran the ball and had some kickoff returns along the way. After the season, a lot of the coaching staff left, and this put Addison in a tough spot. He wanted to make the NFL, and he decided to enter the transfer portal before the May 1st deadline. To some, this was the epitome of what was wrong with college football, as many thought he did well and then was just going to get paid to go to a bigger school. Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi thought there was tampering along the way, and while I can't say if there was or wasn't, Addison was in the portal and many thought he was going to USC. To be fair, there was a reason, as he lost his star quarterback, lost his offensive coordinator, and lost his wide receivers coach. He probably also wanted to get a little bit more in NIL and prepare for the 2023 NFL Draft, so he decided to go to USC. There were rumors of Bama and Texas, but the Trojans won out, and he'd reunite with a quarterback who came from the same area. Caleb Williams played an hour down the street at Gonzaga High School in DC, and now those two would form a bond and become one of the best quarterback-receiver duos in college football in 2022. He became the top wideout on the team and caught 4 combined touchdowns in their first 2 games in wins over Rice and Stanford. In the Stanford game, he had a 75-yard catch and had 172 receiving yards. From there, he had touchdowns in wins over Fresno State and Oregon State, and then had 8 catches for 105 yards in a win over Arizona State. He then helped them beat Washington State before a huge showdown with Utah. While the Utes would get the best of the Trojans, Addison went for over 100 yards and a score in that one. After that, he was limited against Colorado, where he'd have the best game of his USC career against UCLA. In a thrilling victory over the number 16 Bruins, he caught 11 passes for 178 yards and a touchdown. After that, he helped them beat Notre Dame before he'd play in his final collegiate game against Utah. This would come in the Pac-12 championship game, and unfortunately USC had a loss in that one, and Addison's career was done. He kind of had an underwhelming season to a degree, as he only caught 59 passes for 875 yards and 8 touchdowns. Many expected him to be a 1,000-yard receiver and a double-digit touchdown score, but it's whatever. He was now headed off to the 2023 NFL Draft. He was widely seen as a top 3 wide receiver prospect in this year's draft, and eventually he was selected by the Minnesota Vikings in the first round. He was taken with the number 23 overall pick, and this was a huge day for him. He said, quote, "It's been a long, tiring journey full of emotions. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but I've been enjoying the process. I'm just trying to stay humble with everything, and I'm really excited. I'm just glad all the physical work is now done." He enjoyed being drafted and joined elite company. This was now back-to-back years that a Trojans wide receiver was taken in the first round, as Drake London went 8th overall to the Falcons. He also became the 19th Trojan receiver drafted since the year 2000, and was the 520th all-time NFL draftee from USC. In terms of how he's going to fit with the Vikings, well, I'm super excited for him. Minnesota has the league's best receiver in Justin Jefferson, and he'll be attracting a ton of attention, which will allow for Addison to hopefully become that wide receiver number 2 on the team. Addison was unfortunately limited in preseason to just 1 catch, but that was because of the whole situation going on behind the scenes. You guys all know the story and the headlines about that, as he was caught reckless driving, and I really don't know what actually happened in that scenario, but it looks like Addison will be fine to suit up for week 1. He's one of those guys I'm super excited for, as he is a freakish athlete, has great hands, had great college production, and seemingly has the work ethic to be great. I think he's been put in a very favorable situation and could be the best rookie receiver from this draft class. We'll just have to wait and see though, but what do you guys think? If you're a Pitt, USC, or Vikings fan, what do you think of Jordan Addison? What rookie or NFL player should I take a look at next? And what other topic do you want me to cover on the channel? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.